Okay.
Okay, good. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Council, Monday, November the 8th, 2021. I'll call the meeting to order at 4 p.m. As always, remind everybody just to turn off their additional electronic devices so we don't get interrupted. Any additions or deletions to the agenda today?
Yes, I have one. I'm going to bring a report on the Community Development Assistance Fund.
Okay, so Councillor Gingrell, Community Development, and that'll be under 7A. Anybody else? Hearing none. I do have a motion here that Council hereby accepts the agenda for Monday, November 8, 2021, regular meeting of Council as circularly amended. Moved by
Councillor Lake.
Councillor Gingras.
Thank you. All in favor of accepting that?
Yes.
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 Carrie, thank you. Any disclosures of interest today? Hearing none. I do have a motion here that Council hereby adopts minutes of the regular meeting of Council that were held on Monday, October 25th, 2021, as well as the Council meeting, the closed meeting of Council was held on November the 1st as 2021 as circularly amended. Moved by
Councillor Mounts.
Thank you.
Councillor Gingras.
Any errors or omissions of minutes? Hearing none, call question, all in favor?
Yes.
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 Mrs. Korchinski, you had something?
Just that Councillor Tabushi had joined the meeting, Your Worship.
Okay, yeah, I just picked that up. Thank you. Welcome, Councillor Debussy.
Thank you.
Okay, Council reports. First up, we have Councillor Gingrell on Community Development Fund.
Yeah, so at our last committee meeting, we did approve 2 more applications to the Community Development Assistance Fund. So that was for the Brass Bell group, and that is so they can run their baby beginnings indoors following COVID distancing. So they'll be renting the Lakeview Center. So that fund that we gave them will be able to cover that. The other fund. The other one we covered, I'm sorry, I don't have the amount right in front of me. I believe it was 2,000, and that was for the snow kickers, and that's an annual donation that we've given that group for the last couple of years. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
And those actually, I should add those applications for the next year close the end of the month, so November 30th. So we'll be meeting shortly after that to review any applications that come in by then.
Okay, so any questions? I see Councillor Valens.
Yeah, just quickly, Councillor Gingras, if any other organizations or service providers wanted to apply, just what's the method? Would they reach out through the town website? What, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so the application is on the website. They just need to look up the CDAF, or if they want to reach out to Town Hall, it's Serena that takes care of them at Town Hall until they get to that meeting.
Thank you. Anybody else? So we had originally budgeted for $10,000, and where is the fund at now? Do you have that information for this year, 2020?
We're below that. I don't have the exact number. I do have it in my email. If you just give me.
Yeah, no worries. You can dig it up, and then just to remind people out there, because I had a question posed to me this past week as well, that you can contact the municipality at any given time and ask for not only this program for the Community Development Fund, but any programs we might offer through the community to groups, organizations, and residents alike. So don't be afraid to reach out and contact administration, and they will walk you through any type of program, and or go to our town website. I know sometimes navigating through websites and looking for certain things, but I'm sure if you punch in just funding, group funding, program funding, you'll find some of the information there. But please reach out for that. Do you find it, Councillor Gingras?
Yeah, so the total so far is 7,872. So that's 1,000 to snow kickers. I think I said 2,000 earlier, but I've got the correct amount in front of me now. Just over 4,000, which is for the flowers that go in the plots. 2,000 for the Rod and Gun Club. And then the Brass Bell funding that went as well, which is just under 500. So that's the total for that program so far.
Awesome. Councillor Lake?
And I think that fund is great, and it's nice to see it being used, Councillor Gingras. And I know the town has also offered support beyond money, sometimes questions around governance. And I remember we ran a couple of programs around kind of board governance that I thought were pretty useful for groups. So I think if groups are looking for support, that it extends beyond just money, but it's nice. Sometimes money is really all you need. And you just need the town to not help with other stuff, but there are, I think, some other supports that are available too.
Great, thanks. Nothing else? Thanks for that report. Up next, we have our student councilors report, and as always, we encourage them to give us highlights what's happening in their school world as well as what's happening in the municipality for them. So Councillor Kavner is here today. I don't see Councillor Mistrix tuned in yet, but if he does, we'll definitely invite him for a report. So Councillor Kavner.
Yes, Councillor Mistrix is having some technical difficulties getting onto the meeting.
Okay.
But as for things going on in the school, our first Student Senate meeting took place on October 29th. We discussed goals for this year, leadership and past student achievements. And this year's student trustees introduced themselves, and the theme for this month, or the monthly challenge, is self-care. We had 2 sports days last week. We had senior boys volleyball and senior girls basketball on November 2nd in Manitouwadge, and on November 3rd we had 3 guest teams in the school. We had Niprock and Manitouwadge playing volleyball against the junior boys, and Lake Superior High School playing basketball against the junior girls. This week is a transition week between quadmesters 1 and 2. Exams are today and tomorrow on the 8th and 9th, and the 10th is an asynchronous day. And the student trustees have put together some activities that students are invited to participate in online. Quadmester 2 starts on Thursday, November the 11th, and we'll also be having a Remembrance Day ceremony. Due to COVID-19 regulations and capacity limits, we aren't able to get everybody in the gym like usual, but it will be taking place virtually. The first student council meeting will hopefully be taking place early next week, and the gym is now being used at lunch to promote healthy well-being with an open gym period. Students with jack.org have helped promote mental well-being throughout the exam week, and the local Air Cadet unit has resumed in-person training.
Great. Thank you for that. Anything else from council and questions in regards to Councillor Kavner's report? Great, thanks. And if Councillor Mistrix gets in through his technical difficulties, we'll definitely invite him to give us a highlight of what's happening on his report as well. Thanks for that. Up next, we have a report on discussion regarding the COVID-19 declaration of emergency. Mr. Skorczynski.
So no paper copies or no report with respect to this item for council. Did want to flag it for discussion with respect to COVID-19. And as we continue to move forward with the increase in our vaccination rates locally. So if council recalls, and I had to go back and really look through my notes, we declared this declaration for the local emergency back in March of 2019, believe it or not. We've had it in place that long during the global pandemic. So from an administrative perspective, we don't see a need to continue to have the local declaration in effect. And we think that at the regular meeting at the end of November, we can bring forward the necessary motion to eliminate the current declaration, unless council sees fit to keep in place otherwise. I don't see any reason why we need it going forward with respect to the pandemic. Now that we know we're theoretically moving through the 4th wave, and vaccinations are still available to those residents who are not vaccinated. And with the recent announcement that the province is moving to the booster shots for a 3rd dose moving forward in the latter part of 2021 and 2022. So just wanted to bring it forward as a discussion item, and if council is in agreement with administration's perspective, that we'll prepare the necessary paperwork to end the declaration for the end of November.
Thank you for that report, Councillor Lake.
Thanks, Your Worship. So I remember declaring the declaration, and it feels like about 10 years ago, not 1.5. But what were the special things that the declaration allows us to do administratively? Because I'm just thinking, you know, we've seen rises in cases in nearby communities. If that were to happen again, one, could you redeclare? And what are the administrative benefits of being in that state?
So the real advantage for the municipality with the declaration of emergency is it puts the emergency management responsibility in our emergency management committee, so that it doesn't run through council, but it runs through the CAO. I'm the chair of our emergency management committee, and what it does is it gives us the ability to make decisions in real time. It doesn't mean council is circumvented, but it doesn't fall under the Municipal Act in terms of a regular meeting of council to make decisions. And by and large, administration, you know, through our various roles and functions, as well as intergovernmental connections, is more well-versed on a day-to-day basis to handle an emergency. In this case, it was a pandemic, but other examples would be a forest fire as an example, where we needed to act very swiftly. So that's the real advantage. The other advantage is in certain situations, although this wasn't relevant to the pandemic, we would be available to apply for potential government funding. You know, I'll use the forest fire example again, because that is one we practice as a municipality. You know, if we were to, you know, absorb large costs related to a forest fire to fight it and rebuild from it, we could potentially apply to the provincial funding agencies for to recoup those costs. So those are the two fundamental, you know, underpinnings, you know, of a declaration of an emergency. But the mayor can declare an emergency at any time. It actually doesn't need council approval to do that. In this case, we did, because it wasn't something that, you know, was immediate that we had to, you know, administer that day. But in the event it was something, you know, like a blizzard or you know, a prolonged power outage, the mayor has that ability to declare an emergency at any time.
Okay, Councillor Debussy.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because I'm on the thing. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So is it possible if we left this one in place? Because one of the things I wanted to make sure is that we can make fast decisions in real time based on science, I'll say. And I know the advisory group or the emergency management group is in touch with the district health unit and so forth. So is it possible, or are there ramifications about not lifting it? I mean, can we have two emergency orders in effect, because say one for the pandemic, so that real-time decisions can be made, and then if event of a snowstorm or whatever it may be, can we have two emergency declarations in place at the same time?
Yes, we can. There's, you know, it's the emergency situation that would dictate whether we call the declaration of an emergency. Some emergencies we might not be required to. We could deal with them administratively very quickly. The only, you know, our thought process administratively behind this one was, you know, we would get it off the books before the end of 2021, as council heads into its, you know, last year of its term. And obviously the potential of there being a lame duck situation, depending on who declares for the next municipal election. We can keep the declaration in place. There's certainly no harm with it. Our emergency management committee has not met for some time with respect to COVID-19. Myself and the mayor both engaged in regular calls with the district at the Thunder Bay District Health Unit level. And that's really how we're dealing with the pandemic on a go-forward basis. So we don't see the need to continue it, but if council would like it to remain in place, that's certainly under your purview to discuss.
Councillor Debussy.
Yeah, just to follow up there, because we're at that, I'll say, a stagnated point of vaccinations, and we're rolling out the third, I guess, in Ontario. Is it possible then, if we lift this COVID order, that there may be some complacency in the public thinking that, oh, it's not really an issue anymore? And then the other one is, if we do lift it, is it possible for the mayor and administration to invoke an emergency issue if we had another flare up like we did last spring? So I just want to make sure that we're not lagging, or we lag behind, because when we did have our blip, I'll say, everything came into place. Didn't have to come to council, didn't have to do it. You know, I guess the group coordinated a response about closing access and whatever it may be. So that's the only thing I see the benefit of maybe keeping it in place. and that's just my thoughts. But we can also discuss this when you bring forward a motion or I guess a report next meeting.
So with that being said, I think that as administration, Mr. Skorchinski identified whether council wants to bring the report or not. So I think the discussion can clearly happen today. If the report comes forward, that means we're basically going to support the closure or the stopping of the emergency declaration as of that date, which would be what, November 22nd, I believe. So it's up to council whether they want administration to bring it forward. Mr. Skorchinski.
Just a couple of other points of interest for council to consider as we move forward. So one, there doesn't need to be a declaration of emergency for the Emergency Management Committee to meet because that committee is chaired through administration by the CAO. So the CAO does have that ability to call a meeting at any time for the Emergency Management Committee. And the second thing is the other transition that's now happening in November is immunization of COVID-19. Is now transferring over to regionally through the Thunder Bay District Health Unit and our local offices, and isn't being administered through our family health team anymore. So that's the other change. And I think with the connection we have right now, through the mayors and CAOs group at the health unit level, this move just seems to make administrative sense.
Good, Councillor Valens.
Yeah, I would just like to say that with the slight increase that we're seeing currently with COVID-19 cases, not a drastic amount, but there is a slight increase. And with the holiday season coming up, I would like to see the declaration last until probably January or February of the new year, just so that we can kind of gauge and see what the holiday season is going to bring and what that, when the snow really comes and people are gathering, what that looks like coming out of the holiday season.
Yeah, Councillor Lake.
Yeah, I was just I'm just sort of I hadn't thought of that, Councillor Valens, but what you're sort of suggesting is that the declaration kind of acts as that reminder to everybody that we're still in this and we need to be vigilant. So is that kind of is that why you're suggesting that administratively maybe we don't need it, but it does kind of stand as a way to remind people that we're still involved in this pandemic? Is that sort of what you're suggesting?
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw a large number of cases reported today, and something like over 500 in Ontario. So just, again, as a reminder, with people gathering and everything throughout the holiday season, yes, it would just be, I think, a cognizant good idea to keep it until the new year and then look at it then.
So here's a thought then based on that. So we bring it back into to the administration report in the first meeting in January, and leaves it in for the next, because we only have 2 more meetings after this one before the new year. So we'd ask administration first meeting in January, we can look where we're at after the holidays, and then and clean it up then and take it off the books. And as Mr. Skorchinski identified, the emergency control group hasn't met for a while. We do meet with Dr. DeMills and her team. She's not as concerned, and she's waiting for the premier to obviously roll out changes. Now will start in the new year as well. So let's all agree to have it come back in the first part of the new year, and we can clean it up off the books if that's okay. Councillor Debuchy.
Yeah, I would suggest the second meeting in January with the 2-week, I'll say, gestation period. Coming out of the holidays, I think the second meeting in January would give us a better indication if there was a blip because of the holiday. Sure,
that's fine. That's okay with council? Okay, so Mr. Skorchinski, it's good. Second meeting in January, we'll bring it up for a report to have the declaration cleaned up and off the books.
So noted.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, up next we have a report on new business, which is Northern Ontario Francophone Immigration Support Network requesting November 7th through the 13th, 2021 be proclaimed as National Francophone Immigration Week in the town of Marathon. Need a mover second for that.
Councillor Gingras.
Councillor
Valens.
Okay, I got Councillor Gingras, and I'll go with Councillor Valens because they're both our young French speakers on the council. So is that okay, Councillor Lake?
Oui.
Thank you. So with that being said, all in favor?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Okay. Information received from Roma regarding the virtual conference schedule for January 23rd through 25th, 2022. And I have a motion here that council will register for this event. And I believe it'll be myself and Mr. Skorczynski will be representing the municipality. Need a mover and second for that?
Councillor Valens?
Councillor Lake.
Okay, and we're going to be discussing various items as we have in the past. And this year will be the Port Authority, the LNG project, the Active Living Center, as well as Generation Mining. We hopefully will be at least, if not the hearing, or at least fully done the hearing, and by the time of this conference takes place, we can then have a discussion with Minister of Environment Ontario, and we're going to reach out to the Minister of Environment now federally to arrange some discussions around our support for the project, so that when and if the panel approves it and it goes off to the minister's desk, that both ministers provincially and federally are well aware of the project, so there's no more delay in timelines if and when it's approved for the environmental process through the panel. Because the process is very straightforward. The panel approves it, goes to minister's desk. Ministers have a certain amount of time. I believe it's 45 days from time to it hits their desks, but if it could be done in 20 days or 15 days, it makes it much more easier for the proponent to get things rolling and start construction and those various things if it's approved by the environmental panel. Councillor Debussy.
Yeah, just because travel is not involved here, and some of these groups are their major fundraiser or operating expenses come from these conferences, would it be wise to send at least another or poll councillors, if anyone is available, to also attend this thing, just for support of these organizations that these end up being the biggest, I guess, cash flow for them for the operation?
Well, as we stated before, we always try to consider two people going to conferences. Somebody else wants to step up, and we always try to recognize the dollar value savings if need be. But certainly, if somebody wants to step up and participate in the conference, put your name forward for sure. Okay. So with that being said, moved by Councillor Valens, second by Councillor Lake, the Town Marathon will register for the Roma virtual conference scheduled for January 23rd through 25th to discuss various items with ministers, as well as participate in the conference itself. I know I'll call the question. All in favor?
Yes.
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 The AGM for the Police Services Board sent out an actual memo, and everybody's starting to get back in person. NOMA's met twice now in person. We have another meeting at the end of this month for our strategic planning process. It worked very well. We were separated by 6 or 7 feet at the room. Everybody's vaccinated, so everybody felt comfortable. I think that we have to get back to our lives the way they were pre-pandemic, and we can do it with a lot more understanding of what we have to do. And specifically, a Delta variant, it's more spread through aerosol through the air. So if we're wearing masks and we're comfortably distanced from each other, I think we'll be okay. So some information we received from MPAC regarding the year-end initiatives, copied to all members. Also, MPAC sent out a memo saying that they're going to leave for 22, the fee for the municipality is the same as it was, and that also assessments will be still based on 2016 until they get it figured out. So there's some news there. Also had a good meeting with Mary. Oh, she's not her last name anyway. It's not coming to me, but anyway. Dawson, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Christian. Mary Dawson Cole, in regards to the education formula, which I explained to council last week. So that was also sent about how they would be here for our support for the education in regards to that. So other than that, we have the upcoming Remembrance Day ceremony, which will take place in Veterans Park on the 11th. That morning, hopefully it'll be nice like it was today. That'd be very rare, but it would be awesome. We had a little cold the last 2 years, but that'll be there, and it is going to be open to the public, again, social distancing and all that, so public can come out to the Veteran Square and participate in the actual event, but it'll also be streamed live through the morning on Facebook and other mediums through social media. So I encourage everybody to take part, and if not, you can't come out, at least tune in. And as Councillor Kavanagh said, she at the school will be recognizing that as well, and that's great to see our youth and the community as well as engaging in remembrance of the veterans. And of course, this year being the 100th year of the poppy, will be something that we'll be recognizing after the Remembrance Day ceremony, is the importance of that little flower. So great to see. Mr. Skorczynski and then Councillor Debussy.
Your Worship, I did want to point out to the public that Peninsula Road will be closed during the hours of 10:15 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. at the Sun Crescent intersection, as well as the hospital intersections, to allow for the ceremony to take place outdoors and for space to be provided for distancing. So the public should be aware of that. Our emergency service providers have been provided their notice, but just information for the public.
Great, thanks. Councillor Debussy?
No, I was just going to make sure that you read the notice of the road closure.
Yep. Councillor Lake?
Yeah, just wondering then, for folks that are coming to the service, where is the preferred parking for folks from, just because I know the construction is across the road right now, what are we envisioning for where people should park and then safely get to the site?
Well, behind the arena is our parking, so that's the municipal parking. So by all means, the old parking lot behind the arena, DH Food area, as well as I'm sure some parts of the Superior Place Mall will be accessible if individuals would like to park through there, but that's up to them. But I think the key is our municipal parking is behind the arena/DH Mall area. Mr. Skorczynski?
Yeah, that should be fine, Your Worship. I have requested of the contractors at the Tim Hortons site that they cease activities from 10:45 to 11:45 on Remembrance Day.
Great.
Thank you. That's great.
Thanks. Okay, so with that being said, I need a mover and a second to adjourn at the hour of 4:26.
Councillor Tabucci?
Councillor Valens?
Okay, and we are going into an in-camera meeting following this public meeting to discuss, let me get my little green sheet here. Personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local boards, as well as labor relations or employee negotiations. So with that being said, all in favor of the adjournment?
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
and have a good night. Thanks, Councillor Kavanagh, and hopefully Councillor Mistrix will get in next time and figure out what the problems were. Thanks, have a good day.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, folks.